Hello, Christina here with One Creative Direction. How are we all doing today? I'm going to walk you through in this video step by step on how to finish a vase once you have poured on it. I think the vast majority of us pour a vase from the top down and we rest the vase on something and let the paint drip off. And what that leaves you is a really uneven edge here at the top. So I've seen the question multiple times is how do we, take care of that? So I'm going to walk you through my process of finishing a vase. I have other videos on vase pouring, so we won't go over that today. But I will walk you through how I finish my vase. So I poured this close to 2 weeks ago. And you can pretty much do this step anytime, but the remaining steps you're going to want to wait a little bit. But for this particular vase, first thing I do is I trim this. Some folks might not, some folks might want that paint all the way around that rim. I used to do tumblers, so I do these the same exact way that I did my tumblers when I was done with the process and I was in the finishing stages. So let's get started. So what I use is this X-Acto knife, and you don't have to have this exact one. I just really prefer this over the cheap ones. I got a piece of paint on there. I prefer this one over the cheaper like Dollar Tree or whatever ones. These are Cricut knives, and the only reason I have them is because they were on clearance and I got the replacement blades on clearance, and honestly they last forever. I literally just changed the blade and I've been using this for over 2 years. So it's the first time I've ever changed the blade on it. They're super sharp, very durable. These tips don't move. They're easy to pop in and out, the replacement blades. So highly recommend, unless that there's a better like artist grade, but you definitely want something that's sharp because you don't want it to pull or rip your paint as you're trimming. Okay, so what I do, and I'm going to try to get as close of a shot of this as possible so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so what I do is I take my knife, and if there's paint along the inside, sometimes I'll use my fingernail because the closer you get to that rim, the easier it is for your knife to slip and you slice your paint, and you don't want that. So basically I start, and you don't want to like try to take it off all at the same time. So I start on the inside, and hopefully you guys can see this. I start on the inside and I start trimming all of the stuff that's closest to the inside of the vase, and try to just get a nice even amount. And don't worry about it that it's all the same all the way around, because I'll show you how to finish that off. But basically you want to go in at an angle and just try to get all of that excess from the inside first. If you get a couple of like really, really small pieces, I usually just take my fingernail and just kind of run it along there. Hopefully we all have at least a little bit of a fingernail that we can do that. Okay. And I do that all the way around the vase until I get it about to the point where the top, like if you were to take your finger, you don't feel anything on that inside rim. And I usually, and I don't know if this is going to come across on the camera, but I usually angle my knife like this. So I'm not cutting like this and giving it an opportunity to catch, but I'm holding it like this and going at it that way, like more of this angle rather than this angle. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. So I pretty much have everything off of that part. All right, I'll do the other half off camera. So you can see, hopefully here, this is all pretty much clean on this lip. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do the other part of it. So I usually do it this way. So I've already cleaned this off. And basically, I take it down to about right here. So you can see that there's a little bit of a lip, right? And then I'm going to do that all the way around. And again, you want to hold your knife at an angle so it's not grabbing the paint. Okay. I think that's pretty even. And I usually check myself by, you know, just kind of running it along at the same angle. Okay, so you can see that looks very nice. All right, don't look at the other side, because we haven't done that yet, but this looks very nice. And I'll clean that up with my finger and make sure there's nothing else in there. There's a little tiny bit right there. I always go through and double check before I sell them. But so basically, once you get this rim all cleaned, you'll go into the next step. Now, I use Bright Tone to seal my vases. So the whole process for me is I'm going to put 1 or 2 coats of Bright Tone on here. Sometimes if it's nice outside, I'll do shellac first. I'll do a couple of light coats of shellac. But a lot of times I just go straight into the Bright Tone unless it's dark colors. Then I always shellac. Prevents that cloudiness. So once I put on 1 or 2 layers of Bright Tone, typically 1, I will put my care instructions on the bottom. And this is just a simple water slide that I printed with my my logo. Sorry about that, guys. Printed with my logo. So hopefully you can see that. It's got my logo and my name. And it basically is giving them care instructions. Hand wash only, no dishwasher, no hot water, and no soaking. So that lets the person who's buying this vase know how to take care of the vase. And then once I put the water slide on, I will let it dry for, you know, 12, 24 hours, sometimes longer, depends on, you know, timing. And then I will just finish off with the remaining layers of Bright Tone. Okay, we are ready for the next step, which is the water slide. As I mentioned earlier, I do have a whole video on how to do this. So if you're not familiar with water slide and you're interested in putting your logo or care instructions or something to apply to your artwork, or even embellish your artwork for that matter, I'll link that video on the full process for using water slide. So we're going to get started, and the only things that you're going to need to apply water slide are one of these little squeegees. You could, I think you get them with pretty much any resin kit. It's, I don't know, it's a silicone applicator. I think I got this at the Dollar Tree in the makeup section. You need a little bit of water. Some people say use warm water. I find it better with not like cold water, but just like straight out of the tap kind of temperature. I find that I have a little more issue with the warmer water. So I use this only for water slide. It is a dedicated container for that because there is a little bit of like a glue residue that it leaves on whatever you're using. So my little container here that I use and the sponge that I use is only for water slide. You may want to consider that so you don't get that residue on anything else. So as I mentioned, I put this on the bottom. I have 2 coats of Bright Tone on here. You can see it's a lot brighter and shinier than it was last time. So we're gonna go ahead and apply this. It's super simple. I did not reverse the design on here, so I'm going to be pulling the backing off and sliding the water slide off of the backing and pulling the backing out. You can reverse the image and do it like a temporary tattoo. So with that said, we'll get started. First thing you do is you take your printed tattoo and I just hold it in the water and it'll curl up, but I usually just stick my fingers on it, just like so. You can see my fingers are holding it down. It usually takes a good 20 to 30 seconds. And you'll see it start to relax a little bit. It'll lose that tendency to curl. And you just want to kind of gently check it. You don't want to finger it a lot because it is a very, very thin water slide. So after about 20 or 30 seconds, I'll pull it out. I always put a little bit of water on my surface, and then I'll pull it out and make sure that it is moving off of the backing. And you're just going to gently kind of try to slide the backing. It's not ready. Some people do it while it's in the water. I like to pull it out. I don't like for it to come off in the water. I can see it curling around the edges, so I think it's ready. I have plenty of water on here, which is fine. There's no correct amount of water. Now you don't want to move it too far because you don't want your edges rolling, so keep an eye on that. So what I usually do is just kind of gently lift it up. Having fingernails is very beneficial as long as you're not able to control them because they're so long. But you just want to pull that backing off. And I have enough water on here that I can pretty much slide it wherever. You can see you can move it without any issues. So once I get it where I want, that's where the handy little sponge comes in, and I just sponge up as much of my water as I can. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your little squeegee here, and you want just a little bit of water on there so you're not damaging your water slide. But you're just going to squeegee any water out from underneath, and there is going to be some water coming out. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's kind of hard to see unless you're on top of it. But you're going to hold your water slide in place, and you're just going to squeegee all the way around that until you stop getting water come out. Now I got a little bit of water on there, so I'm going to touch it up again. And you're just going to gently slide this over. You don't want to push too hard because these are very delicate. But you want to make sure there's no wrinkles or anything. You want it to adhere completely. And I typically do this in the evening, like it is right now. Actually getting ready to go to bed. I still feel a little bit of water coming out. And I typically let it sit overnight. I think that's probably way more than enough time than's needed for this to dry before you coat it. I'm just in the habit of doing it in the evening and letting it set overnight. I do the same thing when I sand my bright tone. If I have to get to that point of sanding, I'll sand at night, wipe it off really good with water, and leave it dry overnight just to be sure. If you get water trapped underneath that, it does take a long time for it to dry out before you can coat it again. Otherwise, you're just adding more problems. So I'm pretty sure that I've got that all flat. You can see it's pretty flat, right? That's what you want. You want the edges completely flat, no wrinkles, no water. It's pretty dry. Okay, we are ready for the next step. So I have, I believe, 3 coats of bright tone on this. And we're just going to take the same knife. And it's a little different than it was when we're taking the paint off. You're just going to kind of scrape along the edge here. And I don't go all the way down to the paint level. I just try to get what's on top here. And sometimes it can be done depending on how many layers you have. You can do this with your fingernail. It also depends on how long your fingernails are. Sometimes mine are really long and sometimes they're really short. Just depends on how much I paint and work. But we're just going to scrape along here. I have to keep looking at the camera to make sure I'm in view. I'm just taking off any excess here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run this last layer of bright tone. What I'm not super careful up until this point, but at this point we're going to finish it. So basically what I will do is go above the paint line with the bright tone and make sure that it's covered. Just a little bit there. I just missed that. Hopefully you guys can still see this. Let me get a little closer. I'm just removing, and it's just gonna be, you're not gonna get a ton. You're just kind of gonna get a little dusting of your bright tone, right? So what I'm gonna do now, and in case I didn't mention it in a previous segment, I usually take a little piece of tape because sometimes I do some really large vases, and as fast as bright tone dries, you want to make sure that you're not going over it. So I always mark like a starting point with a piece of tape or something. So that's where I started. So when I get close to that tape, I start looking for, you know, where my beginning was as I go around. When I get closer, sorry, I think I was a little too close for you to see. So I put this little tape on here, and then I'll start coating at that point and go this way. And when I get it all the way around and I get close to this, then I know to start really looking for my line where I started. And I don't know if anybody else has challenges because, you know, this isn't a resin process, so you can't like set it like when you pour it and pour the bright tone over the top. So what I usually do is I do everything in my hand until I get, and I don't ever do the top until I've got everything on the sides done. And then like for this one, because it's got a round edge, I'm going all the way up to here. At the same time I do the sides, I go all the way up to the top, but not onto that lip. And that way when I'm done, I can pull it off. And I always like set up some sort of cup or something to put it on. Right now I have a large plastic container that I'll set this on to let it dry. And then I do the top and the edge, okay? So I'm not gonna bore you and make you watch me coat all of my vases. I have several to do. So that pretty much is it. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll definitely help you if you're having issues or have questions. So thanks for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video.